I had some ideas about how I wanted this to go, but I'm having some technical difficulties. So forgive me, I got to do it from my phone. Shout out to y'all. Hold up real quick. Oh, that's even worse. All right. If you're in the chat right now, give me let me know what the audio is looking like. Because I'm doing it from my phone, so I know it's not going to be the best, but just let me know. Make sure it's not complete trash. And then we'll get right into the boxing. What's going on, man? How you doing, Fabo? Hold up, hold up. What's going on, G? Hold on, I'll be right back. Appreciate that. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. We just trying to do it big, do the best we can with the boxing. I think one of the things that, first of all, this is my first live ever. So shout out to y'all. The cats are in the chat. Definitely appreciate the support, appreciate the love. If you guys don't know, this is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. You know what the deal is. Like, subscribe, bell icon for notification. In this particular video, in this live, what I want to do is I want to talk about the Errol Spence, Terence Crawford potential upcoming bout, because right now we know it's in limbo. But I think one of the things that you can see on YouTube, any boxing channel that you see that you check for, a lot of times you'll see breakdowns about the politics of boxing, the nuance of the business of boxing. But in this video, I want to talk about what takes place inside the square circle. The application of the sport of boxing between two of the best in the sport right now in the welterweight division. So that's what we're going to talk about. And a lot of this is fueled by, and I know a lot of you guys have seen them, the shorts that I put out. I ask a question, I cut up a video, I give it to you guys, and I say, what do you think about X? What do you think about Y? What do you think about Z? And there's some very interesting narratives being created about Errol Spence Jr., Terence Bud Crawford, who they are, how they apply the sport of boxing, what makes them great, what makes them champions, and how this fight might play out. Now, before we even get into it any further, I always say this in my videos that I cut up and edit that I just post. If you rock with Bud Crawford, I think that's dope. For myself, you can't call yourself a bigger Bud fan than me if you didn't buy Amir Khan Bud Crawford. That shit was pay-per-view. It went triple wood. Nobody was checking for that, but I bought it. Shout out to Bud Crawford. Shout out to Amir Khan. If you rock with Errol Spence, I bought all his fights. That's what's up. I think it's important that first and foremost, we acknowledge that both these guys are tremendous fighters, dope fighters. They're the best in the business right now. And if we get this fight, it's going to be two true champions figuring it out. Now, you see the title of the video, and I talked about the misconceptions. One of the first misconceptions I'll get into right now, and be patient because I'm gonna go at Errol and I'm gonna go at Bud equally. All about the application of the sport of boxing. So one of the first misconceptions, one of the first things I see when I look at the comment section is I did this video and it's Errol Spence just thumping Lamont Peterson brutally. And we know that's what Errol Spence does. He comes forward, he's a tank, he's a Terminator, and he puts you in a position where you can't defend responsibly, and he just batters you. And so one of the common themes is Bud Crawford is slick. I would never use the word slick to describe Bud Crawford. That doesn't mean he's not a tremendous boxer, because we know that he is. Crazy timing, ridiculous vision, and he's a legitimate dog. This dude is coming to hurt you and put damage on you in a way that might be questionable, like if this wasn't a boxing setting and he's just beating the hell out of guys. So we know that. But from a defensive perspective, Bud Crawford is not what I would ever describe to be slick. And let's get into that a bit more. In the welterweight division, Bud Crawford has become slightly more hittable than he was when he was at 140 pounds. One of the fights that I like to think about, if you go back and take a look at it, even if it's just a highlight, you'll get a good example of what I'm talking about. In the Victor Postol fight, Bud Crawford moved beautifully throughout the ring. One of the things that was interesting about that fight is it was over in like the second round. Victor Postol caught Bud Crawford with something nasty, and Bud Crawford just walked right through it, no problems. And at that point, if you can't make a guy like Bud Crawford, or even Errol Spence for that matter, respect you at all, where they don't have to utilize any kind of defensive techniques or set up their shots or utilize angles, anything like that, if you cannot get a Bud Crawford to respect you, he's going to walk you down, switch stances, and batter you, and then eventually get you out of there. Now, he did not stop Postol, but he dropped him multiple times. And in the 12th round, when Postol tried to sell out, he ended up getting clipped and hurt real bad then. But shout out to him because he stood in there and he survived and he did his thing. But going back, my larger point is this. In the welterweight division, you look at David Benavidez fight, you look at Mean Machine fight, you look at Amir Khan almost doesn't count. He just beat Amir Khan's ass, dropped him the first round, and just cooked him. And then it ended weird, right? In the 6th round, Amir Khan quit, got punched in his junk, and he said, I had enough. He was losing the fight anyway, so that doesn't even matter. But Bud Crawford is more available to take and accept damage in the welterweight division than he was at 140 pounds. Now, if you take that scenario and you think about what does Errol Spence do well, or how does it apply to this particular bout, Errol Spence is a menace, and he's coming to hurt you. Bud Crawford has it in his repertoire, in his tool bag, to be a fighter that moves with fluidity about the ring and be unavailable to hit. Is he going to do that against Errol Spence, though? Because the reality is this: Errol Spence Jr., he'll put pressure on you, puts damage on you, and we know that Terence Bud Crawford really likes to get it back. If you catch Bud clean, he's trying to get that back. One of the things that got him in trouble in the Mean Machine fight is he really wanted to fight this dude Mean Machine. He really wanted to take a shot and give a shot, or give a shot to take a shot. He got hurt multiple times with the same right hand over and over and over again. And in the Mean Machine fight, what ended up happening is Bud Crawford was way too conditioned. He was a well-oiled machine. And that's the thing about Mean Machine, if you really think about it. If you look at the Virgil Ortiz fight, drops Virgil Ortiz, who's undefeated at the time right now. He has a fight coming up with Michael McKinnison. But Mean Machine will hold his own. But I think he's too swole up, though. He's like yoked. And then he runs out of steam. Against Bud Crawford, he had a bunch of success. Bud Crawford was far more conditioned, and he's a ridiculous competitor, and he was there to put damage on Mean Machine and stop him and get him out of there late. But I digress just a little bit. Going back to the original point, but you can hit Bud Crawford. Now, you might have to pay for it, but you can hit him. And his competitive side, one of the best things about Bud Crawford that makes him special as a champion, tends to get him in trouble. You'll see him get hit with shots he shouldn't get hit with. Whether he goes down or not, whether he respects the individual after that shot lands, that's irrelevant. Bud Crawford likes to fight people. He loves to get into the exchanges. He loves to see if he can get that back. And he's mean and nasty about it. So that's the first misconception that I think about, that somehow or another, especially in the welterweight division, and this fight is taking place at 147 pounds, as we all know, if it does take place, is that somehow or another that Bud Crawford is Pernell Whitaker. Bud Crawford is Floyd Mayweather or Prince Nassim. These dudes were true magicians in the ring. You were going to have 15, 17, 18% land connection when you fought these dudes, and they have ridiculous land percentages against historically. You cannot, especially Pernell Whitaker and Floyd Mayweather, you can't find these guys. That is not how I would ever characterize Terence Bud Crawford. That's not a knock against him. That's not to say that he's not a great fighter. But what it is to say is he likes to stand in front, especially in this division. That's not to say that he won't or can't make the adjustment, but it is to say that this dude, he likes to swing and he likes to bang. I want to go over to the other side. One of the things that we talk about when we think about Errol Spence Jr. that he gets hyped for is his technical application of the sport. Beautiful hand exchange, for the most part, defensively sound, and understands where he's at in the ring at all times. But if I was going to be critical in a particular area when it came to an Errol Spence Jr., you have to be very, very careful, especially against a sharpshooter like a Bud Crawford, of your weight displacement. Oftentimes, he closes the distance and he does it intelligently, but sometimes his weight gets too far forward over his front foot and he gets out of position. Now, what ends up happening is he's trying to create leverage. As a lefty, you get your foot on the outside first, and that gives you the leverage to get your shots off and do what you need to do. But he gets irresponsible as he closes. So, for example, he has a right jab, like I'm orthodox, so my jab will be left hand side. So there's a right jab. He'll throw the right jab, throw the left, or excuse me, the left hand, the right hand, whatever. He starts to close the distance. He does well. Like, for example, Ugas was great at this. What Ugas would do is let Errol close, understand what he was trying to do, get on the inside, take a half step back, and then counter him. The only issue that Ugas ran into is he was getting hit a lot. And the reality is this: if each individual, for example, Danny Garcia, if you get 100 times to hit Errol Spence Jr. and he has 100 times to hit you, you're not winning. He's gonna put it on you in a way that you're not gonna be able to stand up to that. No one that he's faced or fought, going back 10 fights, has been able to stand up to that. People like to bring up the Danny Garcia, or excuse me, not Danny Garcia, but Mikey Garcia. I'm reading a comment right now where an individual says, "Yeah, I think Bud Crawford can stand up to Errol's power because Mikey was able to do it for 12 rounds. He was just fine. The fight should have been stopped in the 9th. He took a lot of unnecessary damage, and it effectively ended his career. But he fought twice after that, I believe. And he took a loss to a guy. I don't even know this dude's name. Don't even know his name. But taking sustained punishment and damage from a fighter like Errol Spence Jr. has not worked out for anybody. If you want to switch back over to a Danny Garcia, Danny Garcia has almost been on for 2 years. He's moved to 154. He's about to fight Jose Benavidez Jr., a fight in which I think he'll win easily. Jose Benavidez does not look good at 154. When he was out there on his last outing, I think they fought in a parking lot. I can find only one video on the internet of that. I don't know where it was aired, but he didn't move well. He hasn't moved well in a while. Obviously, we know that he's coming off the gunshot. He wears a crazy brace, whatever. Danny Garcia should be able to get that done fairly easy. But going back to Errol Spence, Danny Garcia took 2 years off, almost 2 years off. And then he did an interview with Kate Abdo talking about, I had anxiety. I felt forced to go into the bout, yada, 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 whatever the case may be. But what we do know is getting punched by Errol Spence at a high clip is never going to be a winning formula or scenario for you. But going back to the weight displacement thing for a guy like Errol Spence Jr., if he gets caught out of position or he's reaching from the rear shot from too far out, I just mentioned it before at the top of the stream. If you guys are just joining, please like, subscribe, bell icon for notification. What we're talking about in this particular stream is what would actually take place in the square circle between Terence Bud Crawford, Errol Spence Jr., and some of the areas of deficiency and how I see that fight playing out based on those things and who's going to be capable to make the adjustment. But moving on, your Dennis Ugas, straight left hand, which would be my right hand for Errol, throwing it to the body as a straight shot from way too far outside, way too far out in front of the front foot or on top of the front foot, he can get countered. Now, think about Bud Crawford and his ability to read, break down his opposition, and land sharp shots, accurate shots, and really change the complexion of the fight. If I think about the Sean Porter fight, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, one of the things I think about is that uppercut that he landed in the 10th to get the first knockdown against Sean Porter. He was getting that shot from round 4. Sean Porter was leaping in, eyes down, nose down, forehead down. He wants to come over the top with a shot. Bud had already diagnosed that by round 4 and was landing damage upstairs and to the body. So by the time he caught him in the 10th round and dropped him, he'd already been landing that shot the entire time, from the 4th round to the 10th. So I think about it, Errol Spence Jr., close the distance intelligently, be disciplined, responsible with your hands, and can't get caught out of position repeatedly. You might get 1 or 2 of those and it's acceptable. Anything after that is getting you rocked or hurt. Now, one thing that I think is interesting when I think about Errol Spence Jr., Terence Bud Crawford, I think about the chin strap, right? I did a video on my channel. Check it out when you guys get a chance. and it's just called Errol Spence Jr., Terence Bud Crawford when they're hurt. And we just talk about the degrees in which an individual fighter could get hurt in a fight. For me, Errol Spence Jr., he has a crazy ass chin. Now, Bud Crawford, he flat tough, and I'm not taking that from Errol, but I seen Errol get hit with some shit that was vicious, the head turning shots, and every single time he does the same thing: hands high, step forward, close the distance, and try to respond intelligently. Obviously, you can argue it, throw it in the comment section or whatever, holler at me. But we've seen Bud Crawford in more compromising situations from that perspective. Even before the Gamboa fight, there was one cat that rung up Terence Crawford crazy, and he was doing a dumbass stanky leg. And then we know about Gamboa hurting that fight. And the Mean Machine fight is another obvious one. If you look back at the Jose Benavidez fight, when he fought him, I think that was his second fight after Jeff Horn, he hurts Terence Crawford to the body. Sweeping right hand, lands just above the belt. Terence Crawford got to take a step back and say, well, damn, that was a hell of a shot. So I think from a durability and toughness perspective, I give a slight edge to an Errol Spence Jr. I'm not knocking Bud Crawford. And we've seen him go through it, get damaged, do the stanky leg, put on for his people, and then come back and stop a guy like Gamboa, who I believe was undefeated at the time. Stop a guy like Mean Machine, who was undefeated coming off a draw against Ray Robinson, and get him out of there. So we know he has it in him. But these guys are going to be fighting each other. And Bud Crawford cannot put himself in a position where he has to recover against a guy like an Errol Spence Jr. So from that chin perspective, you look at the clean shot from Ugas in their fight April 16th. The Larte, which is a long time ago, the Larte, that's probably his most notable joint where Spence just got his head turned around. He was in the middle of exchange, throwing his shots. Right hook sneaks in, catches him flush, and almost knocks his mouth guard out. Steps forward, ties up, gets to the end of the round. And then even in the next round, now this can be debated, but even in the next round, Errol Spence Jr. had to play that round safe. He moved well, he jabbed, he made sure he kept his backs off the ropes and played it safe. But that's probably the best true example of Errol Spence getting hurt, and then having to recover. We've seen that a little bit more from the Bud Crawford side. And that was Errol's 10th fight. He was 9-0 at that point. I think Larte was undefeated as well. 9-0, 15-0, something like that. Both undefeated. And, he got hurt bad and he had to bounce back and recover. But one of the things I always see is like, oh, this is a good one. Errol gets hit way too much. He gets rocked in every fight. I would challenge anybody listening to the sound of my voice. If we're not talking about Larte, and I will give you your Dennis Ugas. When was he hurt against Ocampo, Bundu, Phil LaGreco, guys I can't remember? Sean Porter caught him good, right in the middle of his shit. Yep, a 40, overhand shot caught Spence. I wouldn't say that he was hurt, but it definitely got his attention, and he had to respect what Sean Porter was bringing to the table. But so we have those three, but the commentary of he just gets hurt all of the time, and then we're going to let Bud Crawford off the hook for when he's walking around doing a stanky leg, that shit's not acceptable. I can't accept that. So if you're going to tell a story, we got to tell the whole story. Both these dudes are beasts. I'm giving the nod for a chin strap to Errol Spence Jr. If I want to move to the next misconception that I want to debunk, because most of the people who are making this statement are correct, but they're just misapplying it. Errol Spence is just way too slow for Terence Bud Crawford. No way he can keep up. That's widely inaccurate. Now, let me tell you what Terence Bud Crawford does have. Dumbass timing, ridiculous vision. He's not out there. I think about guys who blaze. Think about dude with crazy hand speed. Right now, if you're thinking about it, you could throw him in the chat. Jorge Linares, dumbass hand speed. Gervonta Tank Davis, dumbass hand speed. Who's another? Gary Russell, he has crazy ass hand speed. His hand speed is dumb. These guys are blazers. Whether they winning, whether they are missing other crucial aspects of their game, that's irrelevant to this portion of the conversation. These individuals have legitimate hand speed. Bud Crawford, slightly above average, but what he doesn't have in speed, he has in tremendous timing, vision, and accuracy. That's not a debate. That if you watch boxing truly outside of an emotional space, then you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Bud Crawford's timing is ridiculous. The fact that he caught Kell Brook slipping the way that he didn't even get the shot all the way off his shoulder. Kell Brook committed his weight forward. He wanted to throw something heavy, and Terence Crawford said, "Yep, just a quick joint," and blasted him. That was the beginning of the end. We know the rest is history. He jumps on him, he beats his face in, he gets him out of there. But his timing, his accuracy, and his vision. Those are the things that I feel like people confuse with speed when they think about Errol. Now, when you watch Errol, he's so methodical and deliberate, and he's putting a lot of effort into those punches. He's really trying to damage and hurt the opposition. I think what fans are looking at is I feel like Terence could find a shot in between Errol's shots. And I will not disagree with that. It's possible. But my question would be to an individual on the side of a Bud Crawford is, yeah, he can find a shot between Errol shots, no doubt about it. But what is Bud Crawford willing to take by going for that shot? By accepting or deploying his offense in the midst of an exchange, what is he willing to accept? And is the danger worth is it worth the danger or the risk? But if I'm going to go from a speed perspective, I would say it's about even, but I would say how these individuals apply their craft is much different. Bud Crawford depends heavily on the individual being able to, start their own offense, and then he counters them and he makes them pay. He makes them pay dearly. Once he's figured out that you're showing up or you're running out of steam, then you see Bud Crawford put his foot on the gas, come after you, get very, very offensive, and start hitting you with shots upstairs and downstairs and just breaking you down slowly and then getting you out of there. With Errol Spence, it's pressure right away. So whatever your defensive plan is, it's cute. You do the best that you can, but what you're going to get right away from an Errol Spence Jr. is a lot of pressure. And then, similar to Crawford, the punch output starts to go up with each round as it goes. But the primary difference is Bud Crawford's a notoriously slow and economical output guy. Over the course of 4 to 5 rounds, he doesn't really do a lot. In the meanwhile, you're getting hit with clean shots. You're getting countered. You're getting frustrated a la Sean Porter. Then you start committing forward, trying to deploy your offense as best you can. You make mistakes. You get dropped, stopped, and embarrassed or hurt. You know what I'm saying? The Amir Khan fight is probably one of my favorite Bud Crawford fights at 147 because he started fast, dropped Amir Khan in the first round. Then he was orthodox up until the 4th round. He switches to lefty, I believe, and he just starts ripping Amir Khan to the body. He knew Amir Khan don't have shit for me. I don't even have to set this up. I'm about to just come forward 2 hop steps and just crush this dude to the body. Unfortunately, one of the shots straight low that ended that fight. But it just shows you the versatility of a guy like a Bud Crawford. Speaking of versatility, this is one of the things that sticks out to me. Errol Spence Jr., they say he's one-trick pony, highly technical guy. All he does is come forward, blah, 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 whatever. Before I make my larger point, I will say this. Go back and watch the Sean Porter fight. Sean Porter fought a hell of a fight. He did a good job showing angles, pivot step, reversing Errol, and just fighting beautifully. I know a lot of people don't get into this or they think it's bullshit. If you take a look at the punch stats for Errol Spence Jr., Sean Porter, Errol Spence won in every category, I think, except for one. Then he got the knockdown in the 11th, and the rest is history. That fight was competitive. It's not as close as you may have thought that it was. Some people say, oh, well, he was losing going until he got the knockdown. Just rewatch the fight, turn the audio down, and remove yourself from an emotional space. You will see exactly what I'm talking about. But hold on, give me 1 second. Oh, you know what, y'all? Shout out to my man Lightspeed. That's a good comment. Shout out to Lightspeed. I'll read this real quick. I know you guys already saw it. I'm just now seeing the chat. I don't know why it wasn't loading appropriately. Essentially, the gist is when Bud hits guys and makes them pay, do they see it coming? More than often than not, they do not see it coming. See David Benavidez when he gets caught with that uppercut in a crazy exchange and he gets dropped. And then eventually we know Bud Crawford stops him. But the reality is that thing about Bud Crawford that makes him special, the ability to land those shots in the exchange, is also potentially his kryptonite. Especially if you go back and you see a Mean Machine or a Gamboa fight, and I bring those up because of the most notable fights, and it was the most trouble we've seen Bud in. It's his hand exchange and his confidence in himself that oftentimes gets him in trouble. He'll get hit with big shots. When Mean Machine hit him, when Mean Machine cracked him for the first time, but you see Bud Crawford immediately. He gets blasted, head turning shot. He just sets his feet and tries to re-engage right away. Instead of resetting, starting the process again, utilizing his jab and setting Mean Machine up, he just wanted to get it back. Every time Crawford got into trouble against Mean Machine and Gamboa, it was within the exchange, within the bout. So that's something to be considered. I don't think your point's invalid at all. I think it's a great point. I just think that he has to be more, he has to do a better job setting up his offense without a counterattack against a guy like Errol Spence. Because I promise you, no matter how the fight plays out, the durability is going to be on the side of Errol Spence. And if it's going to be we're trading shot for shot, that's not a recipe for success for Terence Crawford. Not against Errol. Against other guys, sure, he might be accepting of getting beat on and punched on. But I think against Errol Spence, Bud Crawford's going to want to avoid that. He's really going to have to mix up his bag, the counter punching, showing a great jab, the feints, and then making Errol pay if he gets an opportunity. But just accepting shots or going like a slugfest, I don't think that's the best case scenario. And shout out to you guys. Shout out to Hunchman 1984 on the super chat, by the way, too. No, I got it. I got the super chat. So shout out to you, and I appreciate it. And everybody in the chat right now, shout out to everyone in here. My bad, I didn't see the messages right away, but let's just keep it moving. And your guys' commentary is absolutely necessary. Your thoughts, what you think about the fight itself, or anything that I'm giving you, I need that information so we can continue to break it down and talk about it. But let's just keep it pushing. So I got off track a little bit, but my larger point is when it comes to a guy like Bud Crawford, he, in my opinion, is going to have the advantage from the timing perspective, identifying openings, and being able to capitalize on those because he's such an accurate puncher. If you see somebody somewhere that says something any differently than what I'm saying, they just lying. They just making stuff up and they telling lies. Don't believe it. He's a tremendous puncher. He's an accurate puncher. More so than his power, it's the accuracy and the timing. It's the shots that you don't see coming, right? And we already know what's the magic saying. Timing is everything, and he has timing all day. Who's the best counter puncher that spins his face? That's easy, Danny Garcia, and he chewed Danny up. But what's important to know about Danny Garcia is punch stats show 103 power punches landed for Errol Spence Jr., 103 power punches landed for Danny Garcia. The discrepancy lied in the jab stats. 84 jabs landed for Errol, 14 jabs landed for Danny Garcia, and the power was evident. Danny Garcia had to sell out in the back half of that fight because the way that Errol was just putting it on him, coming off a car accident and a long layoff, which is significant to note, was much too much. And getting punched by Errol over and over and over again was not something that Danny was comfortable with. He's alluded to this himself. That fight took a lot out of me. I reconsidered myself in the sport of boxing. That was a tough fight for me. Shout out to Mike. It's easier to be accurate against lesser competition. Yes, but here's what I always say when I see comments like that. If I'm supposed to dog you, if I'm supposed to highlight reel your ass, that's what I'm supposed to do. So what's the example of that not happening? When you see a Ryan Garcia go fight an Emmanuel Togo, he's supposed to knock that dude out of the ring viciously and have people in the stands and stadium and shit crying. That is what's supposed to happen. And he didn't do it. That shit went the distance. It was embarrassing. So we can be critical of some of Bud Crawford's competition, absolutely. But if he's supposed to go in there and school a dude and he does it, that's what I'm focused on. If he's fighting a bum, that's actually, I take that back. I'm not calling any professional fighter a bum or no disrespectful shit like that. That's not even how I get down. But if he's fighting a guy where he knows, and we all know, oh, Bud Crawford's supposed to work this dude over, that's what I need him to do. And I need him to go in there and do it and be accurate. I think where Bud gets in trouble is no one knew who Idris Kaviaskis was coming off the Ray Robinson draw, and this dude is giving you a hard time. I'm not saying every fight should be easy, but that's where people go, well, damn, is Bud really that dude? He just got in this situation, a scenario with a guy that I'm unfamiliar with and got dropped and got hit with tough shots. The other side of the coin is Bud bounced back, did his thing, stopped dude, and we all went home happy. You're mentioning orthodox fighters hurting Bud in the southpaw position, but Bud will likely be the orthodox fighter hitting EJ. This is a great point. I think, who was that? Man, shout out Tyrese. This is a great point, and this is not something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. And I'll pose a question to you all. If you're in the chat right now, I'll pose a question to you. How does Bud Crawford approach the fight from a stance perspective? We know that Errol Spence Jr. is a true southpaw. He's a lefty. He don't switch. He don't do all that shit. We know Bud tends to switch. Now, if we're being really honest, if, like, for example, the Kell Brook fight, if you can catch Bud a couple times early in a fight, he's going to fight southpaw the whole fight. Do you feel like Bud fighting southpaw is an advantage or a disadvantage versus fighting a true southpaw and Errol Spence Jr.? That's the question that will pose. Like, that's a real question. Should Bud go in? Well, first of all, I'll say this. Switching back and forth, that's not going to be a recipe for success against Errol Spence. I think you have to pick what you're going to be and be it. I think Bud Crawford can do both at a high level. Honestly, I think he's a better lefty than he is a righty. It gives him certain advantages. But do you think that Bud being primarily, let's say he goes in first round, first minute, and he goes in southpaw, do you feel like that gives him an advantage more so than it would be if he went in orthodox? You think he comes out orthodox, makes Spence open his hands, and then switches? We got to see it. This is one of the things, like, some of the stuff is kind of easy for me to kind of move through, but that one aspect of this fight is so interesting because, like I mentioned, the American fight, he stayed orthodox 4 rounds and then switch. Against Kell Brook, he switched in the first round after he got hit with a couple good jabs and a right hand from Kell Brook. He said, all right, I'm cool. I don't want to play games. Let me go ahead and get this dude out of here. And that's exactly what he did. But yeah, I like that. That's a good talking point. It's something we have to examine. Yol Mena, 1738. Who has a better jab, EJ or Terence Crawford? It's about application. So we know the 3 principles of a jab is a measure, distract, and damage, right? So if you haven't boxed before, you haven't been inside of a boxing gym, the first thing you need to know about a jab, 3 principles in this order: measure, distract, damage. So I don't think it's about a better jab. It's about who applies it better. And I think that goes to Errol Spence Jr. He uses it more frequently, and he can damage his opposition with it and control the range. See Mikey Garcia. He just controlled Mikey with his jab and then peppered him. And then when things were getting real serious, then he could put damage on him. Primarily what Bud Crawford likes to do with his jab in the welterweight division, because he does apply it differently at welterweight than he did at 140 pounds. Bud Crawford likes to put his jab out there to distract and then lure in the opposition. So where guys get caught slipping like Kell Brook did, they'll see the jab flash, they'll follow it home, and then Bud Crawford will make you pay. Primarily, that's how he uses his jab. But because he's been in some dog fights, like the Sean Porter fight, where he has to pretty much just fist fight dudes, and he's good at that being Bud Crawford, you don't see him utilize the jab at the level or at the rate in which an Errol Spence does. That doesn't mean he has a weak jab or he's trash or anything like that. It means that tool for that particular fight is not what's necessary. He's going to other things. He's showing different angles. He's switch dancing. He's hitting you with a lead right hand from the orthodox position, or excuse me, the southpaw position. He's just doing his thing. The application of the jab within a fighting context, I would give the nod to Errol Spence Jr. I'll argue Bud fighting southpaw against Spence gives Spence the disadvantage only because most fighters are orthodox. Spence has fought more right-handed fighters. And this is a good point, and this is regardless of Spence or Crawford. And they say this, right? Lefties have the advantage. They're so confusing. But lefties fighting lefties don't see a lot of lefties. That's a great point, and it's true, and it's accurate. I would say that, or my hope would be, Errol Spence Jr. is a professional, and then he'll be able to make that adjustment. Speaking of adjustments, that's one of the things that is interesting about breaking down this fight from this perspective that we're breaking it down from right now. Individuals state, oh, I've never seen Errol make an adjustment. He's made adjustments from fight to fight and in-fight adjustments beautifully. One of the things I think that Bud Crawford could have stolen from Errol in the Sean Porter fight is go ahead and get on the J step on the retreat so you can get the counter off easier. But Bud had a different tool, right? Different strokes for different folks. Bud could see that when Sean Porter was advancing, his eyes and nose were down. So the J step might not be necessary. You just set your feet and fire an uppercut, either to the body or to the face. And that's what he was doing. When Sean Porter put a lot of pressure on Errol Spence, no more than 2 steps back, get on the angle, avoid the damage, reset, and apply your offense. He did a beautiful job of that. You guys are asking some great questions. Crawford's short shots versus Spence's power punch, which will have more impact on the other? Well, the only way Crawford's going to get the short shot is when Errol makes a mistake. So the impact's going to be fairly significant if you don't see that shit coming. And they're both really good at creating a bunch of leverage with very little space. The master at this is Andre Ward. Go back and watch Andre Ward tape. I can't believe he could get the amount of leverage that he could get on individuals with no space, in tight in the pocket, and put damage on them. But the thing I would say is Bud Crawford fans will state, oh, well, at 147 pounds, Bud Crawford stopped everyone. That is accurate. But who has Bud Crawford changed? Who has he changed? The trajectory of their career is now different because they fought Bud Crawford. Or they required surgery when it was over. I think the pure raw power from Errol Spence Jr., who's also a really good leverage fighter, really good leverage puncher, and accurate on the inside, you have to give that nod for pure power, like damaging, brutalizing type power. That goes to Errol Spence. It's not even an argument with a debate or argument worth having. But I would give the deceptive delivery system to Bud Crawford. He throws, especially the uppercut, he throws it from very interesting angles. Postal got hit with an uppercut, and I said, that wasn't even realistic. But the angle he threw that from wasn't even realistic. But that's Bud Crawford. I think at 147 pounds right now, I think some people would argue Boots Ennis, but I would still go with Bud Crawford. He's the most athletic welterweight in the sport of boxing today. He's a freak-ass athlete, and that's what allows him to throw punches from different perspectives that you don't really see coming. You guys are blowing this up now. Hey, man, shout out to Jonesy. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And shout out, hey, if you guys want to put your predictions in the chat, I think that's dope. And I love how you gotta have a reason behind it. One of the things I know you guys see this, any kind of boxing channel on YouTube, I think Crawford's going to kill Spence. He's going to beat his ass. Okay, then why? Why do you think that? And then you got to wait for the response. More often than not, you don't even get it. Yeah, Bud's a freak. If he hangs up his gloves tomorrow, he could probably be a pro or semi-pro and something different. I mean, he's got it like that. They don't last long enough to need surgery after Bud. Well, here's my question though. Starvos, my bad. You know what? His names, I don't know. But here's my question: who has Bud stopped immediately? Well, his last outing was Sean Porter stopped him in the 10th. Who did he fight before that? And he just got him out of there quick. Oh, okay. He did round 4? In round 4 and 6, he got Kell Brook out of there. I think Mean Machine was the 10th. Benavidez was the 12th, with seconds left in the 12th. And then Jeff Horn may have been after 6 or 7. But, Bud's not stopping nobody crazy like that, where he's just knocking a dude out in 1 or 2 rounds. He hasn't got anything like that at welterweight ever. And we know last time that happened to him was at 40. So I know where you're trying to go with that particular point, but if I stop you inside of 6 rounds and you go, well, damn, Jay got me, that was crazy. And then Errol stops Ugas and rearranges his face and has him looking crazy. Those are different things, right? And getting to the 10th round, I mean, Sean Porter, I think, could have kept going. Oh, but I would say this: if there's another view, you guys can find it. Top Rank has it on their YouTube page. It's a backside shot of Sean Porter after he gets the second knockdown. He had the stanky leg a little bit, and I didn't see that at first because I'd be telling people like, "Hey, man, Sean Porter could have kept going." He had the stanky leg a little bit. Yeah, and shout out to Jonesy because that's a great point. Benavidez, sharp, he had success in that fight. Bud was too much. Bud just kind of really bullied him, but Benavidez did last all the way to the very end, inside of a minute of the 12th round. So you talk about, oh, I don't want to do this. Damn it, I'm gonna do it. Imagine a scenario where Errol Spence Jr. fights Jose Benavidez Jr. and Jose Benavidez Jr. can't move at all. He just got to trade with Errol. You let me know how you think that will. I mean, I'm just saying. But you know what? A lot of people, when I make that point, you know what they come back with? They say, "Oh, well, Terence Crawford would have stopped Mikey," and I would say, "Why? Why would have Terence Crawford stopped Mikey?" Errol Spence landed like 700 something punches in that fight. He threw over 1,000 punches, ridiculous numbers. Crawford don't have output like that, and Mikey showed that he's durable, at least to a point. I mean, his career is over. So how do we know? So let me pose a question to the chat because you guys are doing a hell of a job. Let me pose a question to the chat. How does Terence Bud Crawford get it done? If you could pick a way he gets it done, how does he get it done? I've done like 4 or 5 videos breaking this fight down, super detailed. I even made a playlist. You guys can check it out later. But how does he get it done? Bud Crawford. Shout out to Doug Cooper. He said he doesn't. He said, "Nah, I don't see that, Playboy." Thank you, Tyrese. My bad. 360 of 1,000. I said 700 punches landed. That would kill a human being. But that output is ridiculous. 108 of 618 for the jab. That's just dumbass pressure. That's dumb pressure that he's putting on that dude. Now, you think about a guy like Bud Crawford, his output's not even like that. It's not even a knock on. He's not that type of fighter. He's just not that type of fighter. He's not an output fighter. It's not his deal. I can't see Bud knocking out a bigger Spence. He has to win a UD. Now, I could see a scenario where Spence got to get off the deck. I can see that. I could definitely see that. Because that thing, I don't know when you jumped in chat, but Errol has a tendency to kind of get out of position. And Bud Crawford is he has tremendous vision. He does his thing. He could get a shot off, an uppercut or like a short right hook that could cause trouble for Errol. And he might have to get off the deck. I think I agree for the most part. A one shot, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't know if it's likely. Khalid, yeah, that's smart. And I'm seeing a lot of that as well. That the second part of your statement, though, is what concerns me. You can't give up a bunch of rounds to Spence. He's going to be the A side. He has 3 belts, whatever. I think that, and I didn't want this video to be about this conversation, but I think one of the things that kind of sucks for Crawford is he had bad business dealings with the top ranked guys. And I think it kind of just sullied his reputation, not as a fighter, but kind of as, a boxer businessman within the sport. To where if it's a close fight and Bud Crawford gives up 4 or 5 rounds initially, I think they'll give the nod to Errol if it's competitive like that. I think it's going to be important for Bud Crawford to have a fast start like he did against Amir Khan, get offense off, win rounds early, maybe 2 of the first 3 rounds. And then we'll see how the fight unfolds after that. But if it's one of these deals where he gets down 4-1 or 5-0 and then has to step on the gas, I think it's too hard to come back because, at some point, Errol's going to make the adjustment to, Crawford's adjustment, and then it'll be tight and close on the back end, if that makes sense. I don't want to see a scenario where Bud's down or he's retreating and trying to have a jab contest with Errol, which I don't think he'll win. I think that's a recipe for disaster a little bit. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Shout out to Doug. He does start slow. Yeah, and that's another great point. Shout out to Doug. That's the other great point with Errol. And see the Mikey Garcia fight. He's already whooping your ass, and then he can if he can sense it, he knows he just pours it on more. It's just damage, 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 damage. And then one of the things that I'll say is this is for both Errol Spence Jr. and for Terence Bud Crawford. These guys are really good at what they do. They're exceptional. They're two of the best in the world. I think Errol gets a knock, and people will call him a one-trick pony. But if I come into a fight and I start whooping your ass with like two things, why would I just switch it up? If I'm walking you down, putting pressure on you, cutting off the ring, putting you up against the ropes, and destroying your body, ensuring that you will indeed piss blood. I see your wife, your family, and shit. They crying in the stands. Uh, why would I switch it up? Why would I do anything different? If I'm Bud Crawford, if I've identified that you don't have enough power to keep me off you, why would I not just walk you down and start wrecking you to the body, landing accurate shots, showing off, and sticking my tongue out like Michael Jordan? Why would I not do that continuously? Both Bud Crawford and both Errol Spence Jr. have not yet been put in a position where we've had to see them go deep in their bag. They're not limited. I would never call Errol Spence limited. I think I've seen a little more diversity in him with the stiffer competition than with Bud. Bud's been really able to do what he wants to do in these fights for the most part. You know, he's gotten hit real clean, but he does what he wants to do, which is get in a leverage position, outside foot first principle, and destroy you. And then if he struggles to get his offense off, that's what's up. He'll let you fall that jab home and he'll put damage on you. Yes, Bud got shot in the head, G. That's true, but he drove himself to the hospital. It didn't affect his mobility. He's fine. Benavidez took a slug to the leg and had a crazy leg brace on and was sitting there talking about Crawford landed like a 5 punch combination, but and Jose Benavidez was like, so what? He just punched you the fuck up. You gotta move, G. Juan Santiago. Outside of the sixth round, where the ref said, stop, stop, and Spence got punched in the face by Ugas, can you provide me another moment where where Spence was hurt in that fight? I just want to know when he was hurt. I may have missed him. I've only watched the fight like 10 times. I'm not seeing when he was hurt like that. Shout out Terrence Peters. Yeah, I agree. I think at some point in time, certain fighters, as they come up and they ascend to the top, we just got to make up stuff to why they're really not as good as they are. I think Arrow's good. I think Bud's good. I think it is what it is. And I really want to see the fight. I hope it gets made. Yeah, shot. Yeah, and that's the thing I'm saying. Like from a power perspective, uh, if you can punch me and then I curl up and I get out of there, like damn, you got me, bud. But if I'm thinking about Errol Spence, I'm not trying to be disfigured. I come home, my kids are crying, my girl's crying, she's reconsidering the relationship because I got punched up. I don't want any of those things to happen. And I think that is worth noting, and I think that is an area where Bud Crawford is going to have to be careful in the exchanges. He's going to have to box and box well and really discourage Errol Spence Jr. And I think that's possible. But I feel like if he gets down 4 or 5 rounds, Errol Spence's jab is active, um, and Errol Spence is getting to the body, it could be a long night for Bud Crawford. He said he was shadow boxing for surgery. Yo, I'm done. Candy Slim, I'm done. I'm done. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but Pete, this is my time for now. There's definitely more conversation to come. I didn't even cover half the stuff that I wanted to, but I gotta get it going. Let me guys know what you think. This was my first live ever. It was incredible. You guys are the best. The conversation on point. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. Please like, subscribe, bell icon for notification. And we'll be back with some more heat in a bit. We out.